Good morning to everybody here today. Welcome in another edition of TDN Daily, getting started here in just a little bit. Hello to you, Heldy. Hello, Bailey. Hello, Tuttle. Hello to everybody else hanging out in the live YouTube chat here for the TDN Daily pre-show. We are going to get started with the actual show here in just a couple of minutes. I am just finishing the tweet, finishing the Discord message, getting everything in a proper order for us to be able to share the list with you guys on the big screen, all that kind of stuff. So just doing some of the little things behind the scenes to make sure that we can get the show rolling here in just a second. But looking forward to this conversation. I finished the list earlier this morning, and I feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty good with some of the way that the tiers break out, with the way that there are certain kind of themes with certain teams that are clumped together, and I feel like we have a pretty good launching spot for this conversation today. I see everybody talking about their favorite team in the chat. Heldy talking about the Eagles, safeties being bad, Colts being young. Janelle says the safeties. Do the Packers have any good ones? I'm not going to give away too much of the list ahead of time, but I'll say this. I don't think you guys are far off with your early thoughts. I think, as usual, we'll disagree about the middle tier. We'll disagree about where some of those teams, probably outside of the top 10 to 22 is normally where we have the most disagreements. There's one group that I'm particularly higher on than I think most people are. My top 10 is probably a little differently than most, and I'm sure we'll have a debate once I have a team not in a spot that you guys think he should be or they should be, that you'll yell, and we'll have that conversation. So just give me a few more seconds. Got to get everything set up here, and we will get this week started with our safety positional ranking show. Be right back, guys. All right, let's get this show on the road. Tweet sent, Discord message sent, ring light is on. Let's go to the full screen with the video. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. It's another weekend that we move closer and closer to NFL football being back in our lives and closer to having actual games to break down here on the show. I was thinking about it over the weekend, had some time to really think about what we wanted to do post this series. And I am taking some time off here in a couple of weeks. It's probably about 2 or 3 shows that I will not be here for. I'll let you guys know the exact dates here, but I am taking some time off. But I was thinking that after that time off, maybe we start getting into the other aspect of TDN Daily, which is the prospects sides of things and the NFL draft side of things. And maybe we can start doing some early top 10 lists for the 2024 NFL draft. My early thoughts as I go through some players on film, because with some time off, I might start watching some film while I'm away, just to start to put those lists together. And listen, and we say this all the time, I'm not a scout the way that our TDN scouting staff is, but I still think it would be fun if I had my personal lists here for the show, and we can have those debates and have those conversations. So I am taking some time off here in the next week or two. Middle of July is when I'm taking some time off for just a couple of days, and I'll probably watch some film then. And I'm actually going to be working from a new location here in a couple of weeks, going on not a vacation. I'm just working from a different place, going to see some family, and I'll probably have some time to sit out on the back patio in South Carolina, enjoy the nice summer weather, and watch some tape there as well. So that's probably what we'll be working on here as our next big series here on the show for 2023. So little noteworthy information there at the start of the show here for you in the pre-show of what we can look forward to as the summer continues. But don't worry, we're still going to do stuff like this. We're still going to talk about the NFL stuff, but want to find a nice way to kind of mix things in, kind of balance things, and be able to have everything here on the show. That's kind of the idea. And I think once draft season for a lot of other people starts to kick in, I think this show, having some draft-related shows throughout the week, in addition to some NFL-related shows throughout the week, will be really fun. And so I'm really looking forward to what that looks like during the season. But that is for another time. Today we have the safety positional ranking show 1 through 32. It's on the screen here to my right. And so if you guys are ready, I've got my trusty beverage to start the day, drinking a little zero sugar root beer to start the day. Hope you guys got whatever you need, coffee, tea, soda, water, whatever you're drinking to start your day. We can get this week and this show on the road. So I'll press record for the podcast audience, and we will get started. And welcome into the Monday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope everybody is having a fantastic start to their week, a fantastic start to their Monday. We are back with what is the final week for our positional ranking series here on the TDN Daily podcast. It has been a very, very fun series for us to put together here on the show, a very fun series for you guys. It seems like you guys have really enjoyed it, and so it's bittersweet that this is more than likely going to be the final week here, as we've got safeties, we've got coaches to do. We'll have our final wrap-up show later in the week. So just the final week for this series. Just wanted to briefly mention here at the top how much fun I've been having with this and how much fun it feels like you guys are having with this. And we've got a couple more shows here for this series before we call it quits for good. But this has been a lot of fun. Safeties up here today for us, 1 through 32, ranking all 32 safety rooms in the National Football League. And some surprise teams find their way towards the top of the list. Some surprise teams find their way in the bottom of the list. And I think, as always, as it comes to expect, we're going to have the fun in the middle tier. 10 through probably 22, 25 is where we normally sidebar and have the most debates here on the show. And so that's probably what we will do here today as well. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready to go here. And I think we'll start with the top 10. We'll have any debates that we need to have there in the top 10. We'll try to lock in as many of those teams in the top 10 as we can, and then we can move from there. And so when doing this, I wanted to prioritize having a real true top end safety option, because I think there are very few in the National Football League, but also the depth mattered in some ways here. And so what I think you're going to see is there's going to be a tier that breaks out here. It's outside of the top 10, but you will see that there's a theme that runs through some teams of that they have one guy that I think we all really like, but the group behind that one guy is not enough to be able to push that group further up, and the player in question might have some question marks behind them. That top option might have some question marks behind that player that forces them to not be in the top 10. And I'm already going to make waves with what I have here at the top, because I do not have the Buffalo Bills as my number one safety room. So I see Sean Black's already in the chat. He's ready to be upset with me. I have the New Orleans Saints at number one with Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu and Abram. That's the group that I have number one. I do have the Buffalo Bills at number two with Hyde, Poyer, Rapp, and Hamlin. And I would not, if you wanted to flip those two and you wanted to have Buffalo number one and the Saints number two, again, that is a fair opinion to have. I know a lot of other people would put the Bills group number one. I like Marcus May a lot. I'm a little biased toward Marcus May. I think Tyrann Mathieu still is a pretty good player at the safety position. I like Abram. They've got a pretty good group, and I think they're comparable. Hyde and Poyer is a really nice group at the top, but I think May and Tyrann Mathieu is also a pretty good group at the top. So if you wanted to flip those two, that's fine, but I think it needs to be 1, 2, those two teams in some order, whether it's Saints-Bills, whether it is Bills-Saints for me. So that needed to be the top two teams. And I think where I already start to maybe diverge from where other people feel about this list, I have the Baltimore Ravens at number 3 with Williams and Hamilton. I thought Kyle Hamilton struggled to start the year, but as the season went on, I thought he got more comfortable. I thought he got better. Marcus Williams, you know what you're getting with him. He is one of those true top-end safeties that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. So I have the Baltimore Ravens sitting at number 3. The Seattle Seahawks at number 4, Diggs, Adams, Love. It's a solid group with some depth. Jamal Adams, the question mark is his health. Can he stay healthy? Can he be on the field enough for him to be the impact player that we know he can be, that he's been in New York, that he was in Seattle, right? He's been at both of these stops and has shown how good of a player he is. Just health is a big question mark for him. And welcome to not being in the bottom of the group. I know they've probably been higher with like running back or something, but it's just a round of applause for the Tennessee Titans, who find themselves in the top 5 once again. It is few and far between, so we should probably celebrate that here on the show when we have these types of opportunities. The Tennessee Titans, Kevin Byard, Hooker, Thompson, that group rounds out the top 5. Rounding out the top 10, we go to the Denver Broncos, Simmons, Jackson, the two players there that kind of do the heavy lifting. We got the Atlanta Falcons at number 7, adding Jesse Bates. They've got Grant. Helms in there as well. It's a decent group. Jesse Bates, obviously the big addition, one of their big additions to their defense this offseason. And I think he's going to be able to thrive down there in Atlanta, and I can't wait to see him play for the Falcons in 2023. The Pittsburgh Steelers at number 8, Minkah Fitzpatrick, KZ, Neal. It's a deep group. It's got some depth, got some pieces that you can run through. So they're at number 8. Got the Dallas Cowboys at 9, Wilson, Curse, Hooker for them at number 9. And then rounding out the top 10 would be the Carolina Panthers, Chin, Bell, Woods, and Rowe inside the top 10. So I will open it up If there's anything egregious in the top 10 that everybody wants to maybe have a conversation about, Sam appears very happy that I have the Pittsburgh Steelers in the top 10. Yeah, felt like Minkah Fitzpatrick, too good to not have him carry the weight to have this team in the top 10. But also, I've got a pretty deep group in comparison to some other teams. And so I wanted to reward that accordingly. And so I had them in the top 10 at number 8. Again, I know that there's going to be some disagreement about what I did at the top with the Saints and the Bills. But again, I think you could flip those two teams on your personal list. And you would have them, Bills 1, Saints 2. Did I say Detroit? I do not have Detroit in the top 10. I have Detroit lower than I want to, but higher than I think other people do. And so we'll get to Detroit in a second. And I would love, I want to make it very clear, I would love to move Detroit up. I just don't know if we can based on some of the parameters that I have set for the list. Heldy says, sorry, I had to do work things. Can you quickly restate the top 10 pretty please? Because you said pretty please, absolutely. We've got the Saints 1, the Bills 2, the Ravens 3, the Seahawks 4, the Titans 5, the Broncos 6, the Falcons 7, the Steelers 8, the Cowboys 9, and the Panthers 10. And I already see the disagreement about where I have the Saints. I understand, but it's a personal preference thing for me, and so I'm not really going to change the list because, again, I think if I were to make a change, it would be flipping the Saints and Bills at 1 and 2, and I feel like they're close enough to where I can allow personal preference to be the tiebreaker. But Sam, Detroit is one of the teams that I would love to have a conversation about because I want to move them up. I just don't know if we're going to be able to when you consider some of the other tiers that we have and some of the other reasoning that we have for teams in front. I have Detroit pretty low in comparison, and I'd like to move them up, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there because we have to obviously talk about them first before we dive into making any changes to where they are on the list. Anything that we'd like to discuss inside the top 10 outside of the Saints and the Bills? I know there's some conversation there as well. I thought maybe Baltimore being where I had them would generate some buzz. Having Dallas maybe a little bit lower than some people think at 9 might have generated some conversation. But Bailey says, I am interested to see where you put the Bears. I have no idea where you will have them, unlike other positions. I think I am incredibly fair with my ranking for the Bears. Bailey, you're my Bears guy, so I will hear an argument if we want to move them. But I feel like I was incredibly fair to your Chicago Bears safety group and factored in how much I love the players that they have in that room. Okay? That's all I'll say. So if there's no immediate disagreements with the top 10, and again, we're not going to lock it in, but if there's no immediate disagreements with the top 10, we'll go through the next 5, and then we'll have, we can go chunk by chunk, and then we'll go back. So at number 11, I have the New England Patriots. Duggar, Phillips, Peppers. I think this is a group that has a lot of depth, and I think that's what carries the weight here. And Duggar's a pretty good player, and so he is at number 11. Jamie says, Chris, which team did you feel you were incredibly unfair with? I think there was a team that I felt like I maybe punished too much, and it would be San Francisco. San Francisco is the team I felt like I punished too much, and so we'll see after I reveal where they're at if people feel like I was unfair. But I felt unfair when doing their ranking based on where I put them. So a New England at 11, and I think it's important to share that the next 3 teams all have something in common. I think they all have number 1 safeties that we all really like. I think the depth is a question mark for all of these teams that we're going to read. And then I think there is a question about the 3 players that we have that we're going to talk about. I have Arizona at 12. Obviously, Budda Baker is going to be the big key there. The question is he going to be there this season, right? That's the big question mark, but we're going to evaluate them based on what we have right now. Budda Baker, I think, is one of the best safeties in the league. Top 12 is what that generates for him because the depth behind Budda Baker isn't very good. At 13, I have the Miami Dolphins. I love Javon Holland, but I think he's a younger player that we still have a lot of questions about. And I think the group behind Javon Holland leaves some question marks. And then at 14, I had the Los Angeles Chargers. Derwin James, obviously the big player there, but the question mark is health. Can he stay on the field? Can he be healthy? And so I kind of grouped these 3 teams together. I think we've done this in the past. We did this with the Edge group. With some teams where we had teams that felt like they fit similar buckets. And so what we did was kind of group them and clump them together. And so that's what I did ahead of time here with the Cardinals, Dolphins, and Chargers, because I kind of felt the same about all 3 teams and didn't necessarily know where to put them. So I kind of did the Jamie Eisner. I put them all together and then just slotted them in to a specific area. And then I have San Francisco at 15, Hufanga, Gibson. They have Jair Brown, but he's a rookie again, so he's a net neutral one looking at this group. And then to round out the top 16, to round out the top half, This is where I put the Chicago Bears with Jackson and Brisker, the two players that lead the way. I love Eddie Jackson. I think Jaquan Brisker is a younger player on the rise. I like this group. I think there's potential for them to end up being higher. If Jackson and Brisker continue to grow together, I think we're looking at them kind of their floor being where I have New England with Duggar and Phillips and Peppers. But I think for right now, going into the season, 16 felt pretty fair for me. So that's where I've got the top 16. Again, the big takeaways here in this tier, where I had San Francisco all the way down at 15, and then what I did with the Cardinals, Dolphins, and Chargers 12 through 14, I think are the big takeaways and probably the big things that we may or may not disagree on that will force us to make some changes down the road. Rounding out the top 20, I've got Houston at 17, a team that I love long-term, this safety position. They signed Jimmy Ward. I don't have questions about a new player in a new place because of the head coach and what role Jimmy Ward's going to be asked to play. It's going to be almost identical to the role that he played in San Francisco. Jalen Petrie had a pretty good rookie season. I think he's a younger player on the rise. It's a nice group to start from. So I've got Houston at 17. I've got Detroit at 18. And again, we already talked about them a little bit earlier in the program. I'd love to move them up. They've got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Kirby Joseph had a pretty good season last year. And they've got Brian Branch, who's one of my favorite players in the draft. But again, we're treating rookies as net neutrals for the sake of this argument and for the sake of this conversation. And so I can't put a lot of weight into how much I love Brian Branch because I'm treating him as a net neutral. So I have them at 18. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19, Winfield Jr., Neal, and Turner. And then rounding out the top 20, we have the Washington Commanders with Cameron Curl, Forrest, and Martin. Rounding out that group. So those are the top 20 teams so far. Is there any team that is egregiously overranked or underranked that we want to completely sidebar and have a conversation with now? Or shall we proceed and reading out the rest of the top 32 and then we can go back and have a conversation later? I mean, there has not been a major uproar so far, so I feel like I've done at least somewhat okay so far here in this group. Sam says feels like Tampa Bay should move up. Winfield is very good. Yeah, I think we could have a conversation. I'll put a star next to Tampa Bay. We're also going to put a star next to Detroit as two teams that we would like to move up. I feel like Reed Blankenship should push Eagles top 3. Heldy, don't start because you're not going to like where I have the Eagles. Nick Dayton says, with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Kirby as the duo, could you slide them another the 3 teams with solo stars? So, Nick, you're saying let's slide Detroit into that tier where we have the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Chargers, kind of in that tier. We would put them in front of San Francisco at that point. That would kind of be what we would do. Tampa, we'd like to move up as well. Do we want to move Tampa? We can maybe start by moving. We can maybe start by moving Detroit and Tampa in front of San Francisco. And move San Francisco down to the 16 slot, and then we can debate from there if we want to move Tampa Bay up even further. That might be a fair question mark. Sam asks a fair question but is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a true safety or just a nickel corner? It's a great question of how they're going to deploy him for them this season, and that's a big question mark. I think for right now, we'll classify him as a safety for the sake of this conversation, but I do think it is a fair question. And maybe we use that as something that stops us from arbitrarily putting them too high because we don't know. Because if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson does play nickel corner and then we're looking at it being Joseph and Branch, then the rookie side of things come into play. We're treating him as a net neutral. That would move them down a little bit. So maybe we want to split the difference there. And that's why I kind of feel like 18 felt pretty good originally, but we can have a conversation about moving them up a little bit. Now, Tampa, how far do we want to move them up? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wasn't counted as the cornerback list, so he should be here. That's true. Branch is also a nickel corner. We'll see how they use Brian Branch, Janelle. We'll see. I know there are some people that thought coming out that he would have to play corner, but I don't know. Until we see where they play him, where they deploy him, this is the group. This is how I want to classify him. Because again, if we move those guys around, then we got to go back and fix our corner rankings list. And so there wasn't a big uproar when we did that list to put Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Brian Branch over there. There wasn't a big uproar. And so I think we should put those guys over here and have this conversation. And then as the season progresses, again, we're not locking ourselves in. This is our preseason rankings. And then at the end of the season, we're going to go back and look. And if Brian Branch doesn't play safety or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson only plays nickel corner, then okay, we'll make the adjustment when doing the list next year. That's the important thing to have. I think Tampa should be 15. I can get on board with that, Sam. I think I can get on board with that. So we'll move Tampa up to 15. We'll move San Francisco down one slot. And then we can go from there. So, all right, we made one movement. I think we're going to leave Detroit where I have them. Actually move them down a spot now to 19. I think we're going to leave them where I have them for the moment. Let's read the rest of the list, the last 12, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. We've got Cleveland at 21. We've got Jacksonville at 22. We've got Minnesota at 23. We have the Jets at 24, the Giants at 25, the Chiefs at 26, the Packers at 27, the Bengals at 28, the Raiders at 29, the Colts 30, the Eagles 31, the Rams 32. And I will tell you, from 26 down to 32, whatever you guys want to do, we will make any changes. I don't feel comfortable one way or another with those groups that I have ranked 26 through 32. In fact, I made about 3 changes in the 15 minutes lead up to the start of the show when I pressed go live inside this group. I mean, I had the Colts down at 31. I had the Eagles up higher. I had the Packers down low. I mean, I was moving the teams in this tier around. I had the Raiders in the 31st slot at one point. Like, I was moving teams around all over the place. So 26, I think the Chiefs down. Chiefs, Packers, Bengals, Raiders, Colts, Eagles. I think you can do whatever you want with. The Rams are definitely 32. And I'm going to lock them in just to make it easy on ourselves. The Rams are 32. The Rams are not very good, I think, is what we're learning here by doing this. The Rams are not a very good football team, and it's going to be a rough year for them in 2023. But anything else, like 26 through 31, whatever you guys want, we can have those debates. And since I know we've reached that point of the program where I need to do this, let me zoom in here now that the list has been finalized. A quick run through the first time. I will go to this screen where we go to the full screen, and I show you guys what we've got. All right, here we go. Can you guys see this? Or do I need to zoom in a little more? I can zoom in a little more. Is that better? I think this is probably better. So, okay, safety rankings 2023. We have now gone to the full screen where you guys can see the Google Doc where we're working on this from. We've locked in one team so far. We've locked in the Rams all the way down here at 32. Anything in the top 10 outside of the Saints and the Bills, the disagreement that we have there, that people want to have a conversation about? Or can we lock in that group and move on? Because if we can lock in that group, it's going to move us a lot closer to where the debates are really going to have. Bailey says lock it in. We have one vote to lock it in. I don't want to just go with the first vote that we have. I want to see if there's a major. Nick says looks good. All right, we're kind of trending in a decent direction here. I'm good with it. All right, we've got 3 votes to lock in the top 10. Feels pretty good. Feels like we got the right 10 teams in there. So, all right, now we got to look at this next group. We already moved Tampa, and I think this we may move Tampa a little bit more, but I think this is fine. Colton says, no, I'm a bit late. What are we voting on? Colton, well, first of all, welcome in. Hope you're having a great start to your Monday. Second of all, we're doing our safety positional rankings for 2023. We're ranking all 32 safety rooms in the National Football League, and we have locked in the top 10 safety rooms. So as you can see here, the bold and italicized means we've locked these teams in. The non-bold, non-italicized means we're still hashing it out. We're still debating. So I like down to 14, truly. I think this group has a lot of depth, and I want to reward that. I've made my case of why I have these 3 teams where the way I have them and why they're clumped together. I like down to 14. Now that's just me, and of course I like it because it's my list. I understand that. It's tough because each team from 11 to 16 has one superstar. Yeah, I would agree. Hufunga's a superstar. Winfield's a superstar. James, Holland, Baker. Yeah, I would agree 100%. Colton brings up a very good point. Says that we do need to, do we put this guy here? Because he's probably going to play there. We did this when we did the corner, when we did the edge stuff. I don't know where Simmons is going to play. So it makes this impossible. This is where I'll let you guys kind of. Simmons is playing DB. I mean, hell, that could be safety. That could be corner. We didn't put him in the corner conversation. So, right, we moved him out of the linebacker list, but we didn't put him in another spot. We didn't put him in corner, and I don't think he's going to play corner. He's more of a safety if you're going to have him play DB. So I think he's got to go in this group. And I think if he goes in this group, then I think, I don't know if it moves them up anymore. It might. No, Colton, I agree. If he's not, if we agree as a group that we move Simmons out of the linebacker tier because all of the reports said he's working with the DBs and he's going to play DB, and we didn't put him in the corner conversation, which we didn't because I don't think he's going to play corner, then he has to go in this group. Now, if we want to say, we're not really sure what role he's going to have, we're not really sure what it's going to look like, and we don't want to put too much weight on it, that's fine, but I think he still needs to go in this group. I mean, if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is counted as a safety, Simmons would be as well. Yeah, and I think that's fair. And these subtle nuances about this, I think we can refine for when we do the list next year. This is a learning process for me as well. But I think right now we could put Simmons here, but I don't know if it changes anything. Are you really going to tell me that you would take Baker and Simmons over Duggar and Phillips? Are you really going to take the Cardinals over the Patriots? Like, I don't know if Simmons I don't know if we can move the Cardinals very much. Like, I think, great, we'll classify Simmons as a safety, but I don't think it changes anything. I think it probably solidifies the Cardinal spot here in front of, like, the Chargers and the Dolphins. But I think they just stay where they're at. So I think we're going to do this. I think we feel really good about doing this, locking down to 12. And then I think we decide, do we want to put the Chargers or do we want to put the Dolphins? Do we want to maybe do a flip? Again, we should put Simmons down, but again, I don't think it changes a whole lot. So we'll leave them at 12. I love Derwin James. It pains me to have the Chargers this low because of how much I love Derwin James. But I don't know if I can make a flip here. I think I just got to leave this. Bailey says every team down to 20 feels like they are in the right area. Might move a few teams a couple spots, but nothing major again. I will say it really feels like after, I would say, 18, you could do whatever you want down here. Like, I think you could really, truly do whatever you want after 18. It's one spot, I think, down to the Commanders are all in the right area. All right, so we'll lock in down to 19. And again, I think ultimately we feel pretty good about what we did here from 16 to 11 because they all have one guy that's really, really good. Hufanga, Winfield, James, Holland, Baker, and Duggar. So I feel really good about putting these teams in this kind of tier. And the thing that puts the Patriots in front is their depth. The Cardinals, we think their depth's a little bit better now that we put Simmons in that group. And then we have this group, falling in line behind them the way that we have it. And then I think you've got a nice tier here, 17 through 19, where you've got two really nice options with one high upside piece, right? Eddie Jackson and Brisker, Ward and Petrie, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and Kirby Joseph, right? I think that's what we like about this next tier. So I think down to 20, we feel really, really good. So now we're into 20 through 31. The next couple teams up, Commanders, Browns, Jags, Vikings, Jets. Is there anything in there that people feel strongly about? Cleveland, this is probably one of their weaker groups defensively. Same thing with Jacksonville. And I don't know if there's anything major that we need to do here. But I will hear any arguments. I'm leaving it up to you guys. Obviously, if you guys don't say anything, I'll keep the list the way that I have it because I like my list. But if there's any team that we really want to have a conversation about, I like Cisco and Jacksonville. Yeah, okay. I like Cisco too. Derek Forrest, depth or starter on the Commanders. This is where I'd love to have resident Commanders expert Ryan Fowler here for us to be able to answer that question. I don't know how that's going to play out in Washington. Sam, I like Cisco and Jacksonville. All right, we've locked down to 19, so the highest we can put them is 22. And you've also made a motion to give Harrison Smith some love. The next 5 teams should be those teams in whatever order: Commanders, Browns, Jags, Vikings, Jets. Do we want? Okay. I will ask the group this: do we want? And I'm not a big legacy guy, and I don't want this to be this case. But do we want to move Harrison Smith and the Minnesota Vikings up because it's Harrison Smith? Luciene's not a bad player either. I think you could argue that Smith and Scene. Hold on. How far off is Smith and Scene from what we did up here? Legitimate question for the group. How far off is Smith and Scene from the logic that we used to put teams 17 through 19? I know Lucine hasn't played, but he's a nice player. And if you, Sam, if anything, the Jets are moving downwards. This group's not very good. Keep Smith and Scene lower than the Browns. My guy Dylan says the Jets should be higher than the Vikings. I can't do it, Dylan. You know how I feel about the safety group. I can't do it. I can't move them up. This feels like exactly where they need to be. Jordan Whitehead was not very good last year. Amos is a nice player to fill in for Chuck Clark, who's now hurt, but he's 30 years old. I like Adrian Amos. I think he's going to be a good player for the Jets, and Adams and Davis are not, they're just okay depth pieces. I can't move the Jets up. I can't. I mean, we can, and I'm okay with us debating. I think when we're at the top of the list, I think debating moving teams around like one or two spots is can get a little too crazy. I think down here, I'm okay with us really trying to refine the list. So there's been a motion to move Minnesota up, but it appears to have been pushed back a little bit. And so that kind of makes me feel like we should just keep the Vikings where we have them. If we have people that say they should move up, and there are other people that say they should stay right where they're at. Maybe move them up one spot. I know there's some Jacksonville love. How far down do we want to push Washington though? I feel like I'm super low on Washington, having them at 20. And we got people that want to move Cleveland up, that want to move Minnesota up. Locking down to Minnie, I think I like the Jets next, but you don't like the group. I don't like the Jets group, no. I thought Jordan Whitehead wasn't very good last year. I'm going to lock this in. I really am. We're going to lock in down to the Jets. Actually, we're going to lock in the Jets. Because I think the Jets, I don't want to punish Jordan Whitehead too much for how bad he was last year. And I think he is talented enough to have a bounce back season. And Amos is a decent veteran option. So I don't want to punish them too much. But they could go lower, just based on play last year. And now we get into the group, literally the group that I said earlier. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want with this group. Bailey, you and me both, brother. You and me both. Bailey says, okay, good luck with this next group. I have no idea what to do with any of those. I don't either. Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with this group? I don't love having Indy at 30. Where do I put the Battlehawks? It's a great question, Jamie. I don't have an answer for you. Like, I kind of want to move. Like, to be honest with you, and again, we physically can't move this group up. I want to move this group up. I like Dax Hill. I think Jordan Battle was a good draft pick and is going to be a pretty good player for them. But net neutral for a rookie, Dax Hill is moving around. Like, for me, it's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. Packers and Bengals flip. No, I can't. I know there's a lot of Packers fans in the chat that are upset, and there's a Raiders fan who would like me to make a change to the group that I have here. And I'll add to the group. I just put 3 names down. It's okay. I'll add to the group. I'll put Christopher Smith now. Bailey, from following NFC North people, this group concerns Packers fans. That's all I know. Justin Reed and Brian Cook are a better duo than given credit. Nick Dayton, as a Packers fan, the safety should be lower. I mean, we could do this. We could put them like here. Put them behind Cincinnati and the Raiders. But like this group's a major projection. And that's the problem I have with moving them outside of like the bottom third. Rodney Thomas went to Yale and was good last year. Coach should arbitrarily move up 4 spots. Hell, this isn't like a board game where you can have like, you can just like play a card and like my team moves up 3 spots. Like we're not playing Candyland here. We're not playing the game of life where you spin the thing and it never stays on. It always pops off and then you got to respin. We're not doing that. We're trying to rank safeties here. Yeah, we're not playing Monopoly, Heldy. That's a good post-show conversation. Top 5 board games. File that one away, chat. You've activated my trap card. Shoots and ladders, safety. That feels like what we're doing, though. Like, honestly, like, we're just moving this group 25 through 31. We're just moving them up and down. Like, we're just moving teams up and down the board. Like, it's crazy to me. I know Packers fans want me to put them, like, at, like, the bottom of the list. But I feel like we're fine here at 29. Like, I feel like we're fine. I like how Heldy is arguing for other teams and is just completely okay with where I have the Philadelphia Eagles. This team's a projection. This group is fine. This group's not very good. This group's not very good. Like, these are just not very good groups. And so, like, I kind of want to just lock this in because, like, I don't know. I don't feel great about anything. And if we move the team around, I wouldn't feel great about it either. Like, if we move the Bengals down 2 spots, the team that we would move up, I would feel is too high at 27. And so I feel okay betting on a projection at 27 a little bit more. Even though I know we're not doing that, I feel a little bit okay saying that that's the tiebreaker when we're down here at the bottom third of the list. I'm locking it in. And I'm going to read the list one more time here for everybody. Saints 1, Bills 2, Ravens 3, Seahawks 4, Titans 5, Broncos 6, Falcons 7, Steelers 8, Cowboys 9, Panthers 10, Patriots 11, Cardinals 12, Dolphins 13, Chargers 14, Bucks 15, 49ers 16, Bears 17, Texans 18, Lions 19, Commanders 20, Browns 21, Jags 22, Vikings 23, Jets 24, Giants 25, Chiefs 26, Bengals 27, Raiders 28, Packers 29, Colts 30, Eagles 31, and the Rams 32. Colton says, I feel like with moving teams up and down at this point, you were just arguing with personal bias. I think so at this juncture. That's why it's so fun when we get to this point of the lists, because that's really what we're arguing. Where would the Jets be with Chuck Clark and not Amos? They would be much higher. They would probably be in this tier with Chicago, Houston, and Detroit. I think with Whitehead and Clark, I could get them in front of Minnesota, Jacksonville, the Browns, and the Commanders at worst. I think I could get them to 20. And I think you could have a debate about how you feel about, Chuck Clark and Jordan Whitehead in comparison to these 3 teams. Chris, what if the Eagles had Prime and Reed? Well, that changes everything, Heldy. I appreciate the question. Folks, can we just talk about, real quick, how bad the Los Angeles Rams are going to be this year? Like, they're just not going to be very good. They are at the bottom of every list we do. Like, the easiest thing for me to do is to put them in the bottom and then just work upwards. Like, it's not a good team. I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't. I don't know what it's going to look like. But that is it. The safety list is in the books. 1 through 32. We've got just a couple more of these. We've got coaches. So we're going to look at head coaches, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinators. And I'm going to pre-warn everybody now. The list is going to feel weird. Because if you're a first-time head coach and you've got inexperienced coordinators, you're going to be pretty low on the list. I'm just letting everybody know right now. If you're an established coaching staff with an established set of coordinators and you've had a run of consistency and you've been pretty good, that's going to put you higher up on the list. I'm just letting everybody know ahead of time right now what that list is going to look like when we do it on Wednesday. But that is going to do it for us here on the podcast edition of the show. Appreciate it with a rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, share the show, let people know where you're listening to it, how you're listening to it, if you're enjoying the show. Sharing the show helps us out a ton here as we continue to grow before the start of the football seasons here in just a couple of months. You can also watch the show on YouTube Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch us on the Draft Network YouTube channel. You get the pre-show, you get the post-show, you get the recording of the show, you get to be a part of the show as well. So check us out over there as well. Like I said, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can catch the VODs on demand at any time on the Draft Network YouTube channel. And we are available on YouTube Music. So if you're listening to music or podcasts over there, you can just look up TDN Daily and you can listen to the podcast there. And you get the video version of the show as well. So you get the entire uncut, raw version of the show, pre-post show included over there as well. So check that out if you are interested. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the show. Appreciate everybody hanging out here. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Monday, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Bailey says that might be the most we have agreed with a list, Chris. You know, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. That did feel pretty smooth. That did feel like a list where we didn't disagree all that much. I know we're going to disagree on the head coaching list. I already know ahead of time we're going to disagree on the coaching lists. We moved the Bucks and then the Packers, and then I think that was it. This and off-ball linebackers were very smooth. And it's funny because they're kind of the harder groups to put together. Smooth because I was late to the party. What's up, Tate? How are you today? What is my Raiders fan friend in here? I just wanted to check something just to make sure I wasn't like making things up. Marcus Epps and Trayvon Moehrig are their top two safeties. They're the first two names listed. The next person I have listed is Roderick Teamer, who's next up on the depth chart. Now, yeah, I didn't write Jaquan Johnson's and Chris Smith's name down, and I apologize for doing that. But I can't write 17 names for all the team. You know, it's hurtful. Colton House, would you have a head coach like Frank Reich higher or lower than Ryans, Steichen, and Gannon? Colton, I will tell you that I am going to have the Carolina Panthers ranked higher than, from a coaching staff perspective, higher than those three teams, for sure. I will have the Carolina Panthers ranked higher than Houston, Indy, and Arizona. Chris, I would run your pockets in Yahtzee, by the way. That's not a board game. It's a dice game. I mean, considering Matt Eberflus hates scoring points, according to you, you were going to put him very low. I didn't say he hates scoring points. I just said they're not going to score points. There's a difference. I do think they're allergic to scoring points. No, Yahtzee's great, Heldy. Yahtzee's great. Back to work. Great show, Chris. Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day at work. Does anyone have a top 5 board game list for me? Because I certainly don't have one that I have off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it for a second, but maybe we can get started. Is George Russell overrated? Is George Russell overrated? What, Bailey? Like, why do you have to do this? Like, you don't have to. George Russell can be a good driver, and he is a good driver. Mercedes just doesn't have the car this year. You don't want to see my friends and I rolling over these gumdrop mountains. All right? I spent 50% of my time in the UK, and everyone thinks he's the most talented young driver after Max. I just can't get there. What are we defining as young driver after Max? Because I do think Max is the best young driver. I think if Lando was in a better car, he'd be fine. I mean, I think Leclerc, if he had better strategy, would be fine. Janelle says, gotta go climbing and then canoeing. Janelle, safe travels on your climbing and canoeing. Hope you have a blast today. Can I get a report later this week on how the climbing and the canoeing went? Please? Would love to hear about that. I like San Juan, Ticket to Ride, Monopoly, and I can't think of the names of the other games my board game nerd friends make me play. I would take Lando Norris and Leclerc over him. Yes, so would I. Ticket to Ride's great. I've never won the game, but I love playing it. Settlers of Catan. It's just an excellent game. Chess is not a board. I mean, I guess technically it's a board game. Yeah, Ticket to Ride's great. I love Settlers of Catan. So who said it? Nick said Betrayal at the House on the Hill. You want to sink some time into a game. It's a great game. Big fan of that one. Catan is great, but I need to play more. Catan is difficult. I've never won a game of Catan. I have a group of friends. We play Catan pretty regularly. And I never win. I get close. I get to 9 victory points like every time, but I can't find a way to win. I love a good chess game. I know we mentioned chess, and I questioned for a second whether or not it was a board game. I like chess. I'm not very good at it, but I like it. Classic game of Risk is fun too. Yeah, that's not a bad one. That's not a bad shout. I'm trying to think of what other board games. My brother is a super nerd, so he wins Catan every time. It's the power of the dice, you know? The power of the dice. Great show, Chris. Gotta go. See you, Bailey. Have a good rest of your day. See you tomorrow. Nick Dayton says Dominion is a fun deck building game with plenty of expansions. Yeah, I am a massive board game fan. So much so that, you know, I have a group of friends, some buddies I went to high school with, and some people that I've met through college that we all don't live in the same place. Got some people live in California, people live in Boston, a couple people live here in Arizona, and we use a computer game called Tabletop Simulator, and we play board games virtually to catch up. So I'm a huge board game guy. Love a good board game. He just got a custom table. We're going to play on it soon. Wow. Love a good custom board game table. So we've got coaches on Wednesday. I don't know what we're doing tomorrow yet. Just for the record. Yeah, Nick, I love those social deception games. Love them. They're just so much fun. Tate says, anyone else here an overseas viewer? I live in Vietnam, and arguing on this show is the best way to end the night. Well, you know, Tate, round of applause for you staying up late and being here to close out your evening. What time is it for you? I don't even know the time difference, but we appreciate you being here and being a part of the show. Glad you enjoy it so much. But yeah, Nick, shout out the social deception games. They are a lot of fun. $10:50 p.m. So that is, gotta do some math here. It's 14 hours ahead of me. Hasn't been updated, but I've got a board game version of Celebrity Name Game, and it's fun for me who just has random names always in my head. Listen, board games can always bring out the obscure things that are deep in the brain. I like Code Names. That's another one. It's not really a board game. It's more of a card game, kind of. But I like Code Names. It's a good teamwork kind of game. I'm glad we got on the topic of board games based on what happened during the show today. That's always a blast. But that is going to do it for us here in the post show. I have to run to get the show edited before our staff meeting at the top of the hour. But I appreciate every single one of you being here and being a part of the conversation. Like I said, I don't know exactly what we're going to do tomorrow here on the show. But you guys will know, obviously, when I send out the tweet for the show, the Discord message for the show. And if I come up with the topic sometime during the day today instead of tomorrow morning, I'll share it in the Discord so that you guys all can see it and start thinking about it ahead of time. So appreciate it, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I will speak with everybody tomorrow.